the Bhagavad Gita, according to many people, and certainly from my own perspective, is the single most important text to originate from India. Does any given text or scripture, in this case the Bhagavad Gita, does it carry or can it lead to some kind of expressions of truth maybe, but expressions of approaches to the truth that can also be available or relevant in our contemporary world? Having earlier myself somewhat dismissed the text, but later on having wrestled with it for many years, I would certainly say that it is a remarkable text, can be very relevant to anybody in the modern world who is actually interested in finding the truth. If we understand this principle that there are levels of reality subtler than the mind, then it will be easier for us to understand a remark of Aristotle, a very great Greek philosopher more than 2,000 years ago, who said, when philosophy is unable to express the truth, one comes to mythology. Mythology is a way of expressing something which is not completely rational, but is trying to express the truth. These issues are not merely theoretical, and these don't apply only to Arjuna in the battlefield. Really, any one of us, whenever we have a serious decision, it could be this way or that way, it leads to a certain kind of crisis. Now, much of our life is not being driven by these crises, but occasionally there are. Therefore, the question for Arjuna is, as we already saw, what does he say? My mind is bewildered about dharma, and my whole swabhav has been confused, taken over by what he calls karpanya dosha, which means it's being taken over by pity. And for him, this crisis then leads to giving up fighting. Even if they kill me, I will not fight. Leads to inaction. But in a way, one could say that fortunately for him, he is near Krishna, so he can turn to him, ask him, but also to think Krishna inside him. When he is bewildered, confused, he can see, what does my deepest self say about this? But specifically, we have to keep going outside and inside, because it's much easier to speak externally. Arjuna is saying something, Krishna is saying something, but also keep coming back internally. So he turns to Krishna, and this is where the whole teaching begins. In the Indian tradition, strictly speaking, there is no creation myth. These days people would say, oh, there are creation myths, because we are taking the word creation coming from English and we keep putting the same kind of ideas onto this. But there are, strictly speaking, there is an emanation myth. Brahma did not create the world, Brahma became the world. Brahma is not only in everything, Brahma is everything. Sarvam idam Brahma. All this is Brahma. Just as the spider web oozes out of the substance of the spider. So the whole manifested universe has oozed out of the substance of Brahma. Then the spider can move anywhere on the web as well as away from the web. Therefore, Brahma is both immanent, but it can also be transcendent. But there is also very much an implication that if the actor is right, whatever he does is right. This is where one also needs to be careful that all teachings are risky and dangerous. Because I can just claim I'm the right actor, God speaks to me, I should go and kill these people. So it's very important to keep this in mind again and again and again. Any spiritual teaching is first of all insisting that the searcher needs to be transformed. It is not he who is deciding all this. It has to be from God, Allah, Krishna, whatever other labels we put. But that it has to be something in which he becomes an instrument of the divine will. But in order to become this, he needs to be free of himself. The concern in any of the serious teachings, certainly in the Bhagavad Gita, has been how does a human being internally rearrange their energies that one can then become a receptor to subtler vibrations carrying the truth. And those subtler vibrations are not something that the mind can figure it out, because they are vibrations which have also created the mind ways down. Before that, they have created other realities. The insistence on trying to discover what is my true self, what am I, is been persistently emphasized in the whole of the Indian tradition again and again and again, because I am also the instrument through which I know something. So if I don't know what this instrument can do, then what do I know? Therefore, what is the self becomes the fundamental issue. Again, aham, what am I? And this has really been, for centuries in India, the fundamental spiritual inquiry. It is sometimes called the Bij Prashna in Sanskrit, literally meaning the seed question from which everything else follows. I have very dogmatically scientific friends. Just I have some dogmatically religious friends. And they always say, well, you know, the astronauts went to the moon, they didn't see any angels, so obviously the angels don't exist. I said, Christ didn't have any trouble seeing angels, and the Buddha didn't have any trouble seeing angels. And more contemporary times, William Blake didn't have any trouble seeing angels. Are they just fools? Are they just making it up? See, unless one has eyes of the Spirit, one cannot see things of the Spirit. But spiritual mysteries, even in principle, cannot be solved. But if one remains contemplating them, for those who can, they are sometimes dissolved.